Welcome to Sprint 112 review. Get started. So I'll do the sprint statistics. Carol's going to do community update. Harpreet on UI, Adam on providers, automate, Joe platform, Alberto on API, and Mike Shriver is going to do the QE update, and that's a new entry here. So, or we used to do this, and it's coming back. Documentation with Suyog, and then the end. So we've also updated the charts here. So the prior charts were getting old, so we changed them to this, and hopefully this works out. We had 285 PRs merged the last 2 weeks, and here it shows the top 3 repos based on the number of PRs merged. So we have integration test with the overall most amount of PRs merged, then ManageIQ, I spelled that wrong, sorry, ManageIQ UI Classic, and then ManageIQ. And here we've updated this as well to show the number of PRs still open. So again, we had 285 PRs opened with 246 PRs merged, and that brought the number down to 388 still. 388 still open. And now this has also been updated. So this is closed PRs, merged PRs by label. So as we see here, bugs had the most with enhancement, test, and then others are made up of performance, refactoring, technical debt, documentation, and developer label. And for the health report, it really was very just quiet. There wasn't much movement at all in this. Next, on to Carol.
Hi, thanks, John. So, community update. We have Hammer 6 released last week, and blog post is up thanks to John and the release team. Last month in ManageIQ, this is actually for the month of April. Sorry, I wasn't able to attend the previous sprint review to announce this, but it's a very interesting post with cool pictures and illustrations and an optical illusion of sorts. And finally, we have a minor edit in the Getting Started guide. It's by a contributor, first-time contributing to ManageIQ. Just somehow he was looking through the guide and spotted some kind of typos or spelling errors, and submitted a PR. So thanks for that. And something we could encourage, it doesn't take a lot to start with small contributions to the project. So that's a good example of that. That's all for this update, and thank you. And next slide, please.
Hi, everyone. Total of 49 PRs merged across the UI repos this sprint. Out of that, 23 bug fixes, 6 enhancements, and so on. Some main highlights on bug fixes. A nil error was fixed on policy simulation screen when going to screen through relationships, and after applying a policy, clicking on a VM to view simulation results and then clicking on a back button was causing an issue. So that got fixed. And a fix was made to show the row show the row with the label none as selected when template associated with provisioning request has been deleted from VMDB. So that was fixed. And then another fix was made on in the same area in provisioning screen. So when loading the pre-provisioning screen, it was trying to load the advanced search parameters and causing a nil error. So that got fixed. And another issue was fixed when switching between tags and expressions back and forth on the new group add screen. And on our database backup schedule form, AWS region dropdown was adjusted to show values consistent with the add provider screen. And for the enhancements, we added information on the catalog item summary screen to show the associated dialog with the catalog item. And when importing automate data store from an exported file, change was made to show flash messages with specific error messages for each invalid attribute in case there was an error. Also, the deprecated optimized planning bottlenecks, default menus, and other related files, code was removed from the product. On the V2V side, on authentication step in conversion host wizard, a popover with more information was added to VDDK library path field. I have screenshots for the next two items. So next slide, please. So the support to change group ownership for service catalog items was added. So here you can see the new set ownership button on the catalog items list view or the detail screen. And then on the bottom right, you see the form to change the ownership for the catalog item. Next slide, please. So there's another feature added this sprint to reset users' dashboard upon login. So on the top left screenshot, you see a user has logged in on the dashboard and they made some changes. They added, removed the widgets that they can see. And then on the top right screenshot, you see a new setting on the edit dashboard screen for the group where we have a new checkbox, reset dashboard upon login. So if that checkbox is checked, when the user associated with that group, when they log in next time, their dashboard gets reset to how admin wants to see it. So on the bottom right, you see the dashboard when user logged in the next time the dashboard was updated. And that's all I have for the UI. On to Adam.
Thanks, Harpreet. So this sprint on the overt side, Boris fixed an issue where we were collecting security groups for a Rev version which didn't support it. So Rev has an interesting concept of storage-defined networks, which kind of bundles some OpenStack networking into the Rev manager on the infra side. And security groups weren't in one of the versions, and so it would fail to collect that. And so we're basically just saying, if it's one of the unsupported versions, skip collecting security groups. He also fixed collecting IPs for VMs with multiple NICs. It was essentially returning after it found the first NIC, and so if you had more than one IP address on multiple NICs, it would not pick up all the rest of them. On the SCVMM side, we fixed an issue where if a host had a CD or DVD drive, it would fail to build that correctly. It wouldn't pass the right unique index. And on the Amazon side, Alex Z added backend support for using temporary assume role type credentials for AWS, and the UIPR should be in this coming sprint. So that's going to be a really nice feature. And that's it. Over to Tina for Automate.
Thanks, Adam. Good morning. We had 20 PRs merged this sprint. Lucy fixed the VM provisioning timeout issue that occurred when a VM was migrated off the host before the refresh adds the VM to the database. Lucy finished the enhancement to allow a zone to be specified when launching an Ansible job. Patrick modified the Automate data store import-export to allow domains containing Ansible playbook methods to be imported into other systems. Previously, the information would be lost since the stored playbook information only contained IDs. Drew added domain version checking to allow startup logging to indicate when a system's domain's database version doesn't match the file system version. This applies to the ManageIQ and Red Hat domains. Next slide, please. Billy Fitz modified the service retirement state machine start retirement method to abort if the service retire task is not present. This will guard against scenarios where the old retire API is used with the new state machine. Drew resolved the service orchestration provisioning issue. David Long enhanced our available flavors dynamic dialog method to support service bundles. And finally, Lucy added price and currency columns with service and service template objects. That's it for Automate. Next slide, over to Joe.
Thank you, Tina. 35 PRs were merged into the platform space this sprint, again with Joe R leading the charge with 12 PRs advancing the Ruby and Rails version upgrades, with Nick C. and Keenan also helping out with this effort. 2 build infrastructure improvements were also made. Joe R made a change to check for remote branches and skip them if they're not found, and Keenan addressed some Rubocop issues. Next slide, please. For bug fixes, Keenan addressed a 500 failure on the API notification collection. Nick C addressed a create database failure in the appliance console for newer EC2 instance types. Nick L fixed a bug where scheduled NFS backups would fail with the error not enough space under /temp. He accomplished this by moving the validate free space check to a place where access to the populated file stores object is available. And Brandon fixed an issue that was accidentally introduced by a prior PR that had broken product feature processing. For enhancements, MixC addressed a couple of issues by removing the long unused PG cert handling from the appliance console. And Nick also posted a few PRs to address removing the PG logical extension and adjusting the logical replication parameters to support roughly 10 subscriptions by default. Yuri addressed an RFE in the application console by ensuring that DB restore will not start if EVM server D service is running. Libor added logging to standard output for the report generation tool, and I made changes necessary to ensure that external authentication with LDAP will continue working on RHEL 8 appliances when where authconfig is being replaced by the new authselect command. And Keenan and MixC continued the ongoing improvements to our test infrastructure. And that wraps up the platform. So let's get it over to Alberto so he can post an update on the collection of PRs in the REST API space.
Thanks, Joe. Very restful of you. So on the API side, we have one enhancement that came in from Martin H. This is enhancing our filtering to support exact match and regex in our signatures. Because currently we really cannot easily filter VM that include the special characters without wildcards. So we have 4 new operators here, the equal equals and the not equal equal for the exact string matches, as well as the equal tilde and not that for the regex. So here's a couple of the examples for exact filtering checks that include the special characters, as well as regex examples here. In this example, doing case-insensitive searches. So, and yeah, that went through a couple of iterations, but yeah, thanks Martin for getting this through. That's it for the API. Next slide.
Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon. This is Mike Shriver from QE. A couple quick updates. It's good to be back in the sprint review call. So some impacting updates from QE. Are one, our method to configure appliances for test now sets Rails deprecation logging instead of the default Rails deprecation notify. This allows us to collect information on Rails deprecations after running tests. We've also updated our alert handling to deal with the updated Patternfly React modal alerts that have been implemented on some of the services pages and that we expect to see on other pages. We've moved the handling of these alerts from our browser plugin to our navigation step, which changes how often we check for alerts and improves our efficiency there in checking those pages. Thanks to Yevgen Zapolsky and John Dupuy, who are both on vacation this week, for making those updates. We've got some planned impacting changes coming in. We are restarting efforts that had been tried before to run integration tests against locally running MIQ. This is an effort to help development run our integration tests, at least the web UI tests, locally against their changes before pushing and committing. We've got an update to RapidAppy for OpenShift that Justin Watts is currently working on, migrating OpenShift modules to the RapidAppy v3 structure, which was not completed when RapidAppy was originally converted. Part of this effort is equating some OCP concepts to more traditional virtualization concepts. RapidAppy provides a consistent API, and so we want to equate the action of, say, starting a VM to OpenShift relevant terms. That's it for QE. Moving on to Suyog for documentation.
Hi, for documentation, firstly, just a quick note. So there have been fewer doc updates in the recent sprints due to resources being shared between other projects. That said, there should be an uptick as we soon start focusing on RFEs for the next release. So in this sprint, we had 5 PRs merged. and we've made an update to the installing on VMware vSphere dock with the latest VDDK information. And there were some other smaller updates in the downstream docs, the migration guide and the support matrix. That's it for documentation.
Okay, that ends Sprint 112 review. The next one is in 2 weeks on June 12th. So we'll see you then. Bye now.